My 16-year-old adopted daughter was denied entry to her sister's wedding as not family weeks before the wedding. The invitation arrived in a thick envelope with smooth edges and careful printing. It sat on the table for a full day before anyone opened it, as if it carried more weight than paper should. When it was finally opened, everyone leaned in. The date, the venue, the familiar family names, it all looked normal. Nothing on the card suggested trouble. Nothing warned of what was quietly forming beneath polite words and practiced smiles. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. The adopted daughter noticed the invitation first. She picked it up gently, running her fingers along the raised letters. Her excitement did not burst out in loud reactions. It showed in small ways instead. A soft smile. A longer look. A careful rereading of the details. She did not jump or shout. She simply held the card close, like something fragile she did not want to damage. Later that evening, she asked her first question. It was not dramatic or demanding. She asked what kind of dress would be right. She asked if the wedding colors mattered. She asked if she should keep things simple or formal. The room went quiet in a way that felt slightly off. Someone answered, but not clearly. The response was vague, brushed aside with a comment about deciding later. The conversation moved on too quickly. She did not push. She nodded and went back to what she was doing. Still, she listened more closely after that. She noticed the pauses. The way people avoided looking at her when wedding plans came up. The way her questions floated in the air without landing anywhere solid. Over the next few days, wedding talk filled the house. There were phone calls and messages, lists written and rewritten, plans changing by the hour. The adopted daughter stayed nearby but never in the center of it. She asked if she should help with decorations or errands. She asked where guests would be seated. She asked if there was anything she should prepare ahead of time. Each time, the answers came late or not at all. Someone would say they were busy. Someone else would say they would get back to her. No one ever did. The parent noticed, but not fully. At first, the hesitation was explained away as stress. Weddings were complicated. People were tired. Emotions ran high. The parent had seen enough family events to know that planning could make anyone distracted. Still, something felt uneven. The adopted daughter was present, polite, and careful, yet somehow invisible in the planning. At dinner one night, she asked where she would be sitting during the ceremony. It was a simple question, asked without fear, only curiosity. The table went quiet again. Forks paused midair. Someone cleared their throat. The answer came slowly, uncertain, as if it had not been thought through. The response did not include details. It sounded temporary, like a placeholder that would never be replaced. She smiled and said that was fine. She always said that. Fine became her shield. It was easier than asking why. Easier than pressing for clarity that might hurt. She excused herself early that night and went to her room. The door closed softly, but the quiet it left behind felt loud. The parents stood at the sink later, washing dishes, replaying the moment in their mind. The look on her face had been calm, but something in her eyes lingered. Not anger. Not sadness exactly. More like confusion mixed with patience. The kind of patience learned by someone who had waited their whole life to belong. In the days that followed, the adopted daughter tried again, carefully. She asked if she should invite a friend to come with her. She asked if she would be part of any family photos. Each question was wrapped in politeness. Each one was met with delay or deflection. The parent noticed the pattern now. The hesitation was no longer random. It was consistent. Still, the house remained calm on the surface. No raised voices. No arguments. Just a gentle distance that grew wider each day. Conversations flowed around her, not through her. Wedding plans were discussed in side rooms, behind closed doors, or in quick whispers that stopped when she entered. The parent told themselves it would sort itself out. They believed that families stumbled sometimes but found their footing again. They believed that love was stronger than discomfort. They believed that no one would intentionally hurt someone who had already fought so hard to feel included. One afternoon, the adopted daughter stood in the doorway as dresses were discussed. She listened as styles and colors were debated. She waited for a pause that never came. Finally, she asked if a certain color would be okay for her. The answer came too quickly this time, sharp and final. It was a polite refusal, wrapped in an excuse about tradition. She nodded and stepped back, the conversation continuing as if nothing had happened. The parent watched her walk away and felt a slow tightening in their chest. It was not anger yet. It was concern mixed with doubt. Had they missed something earlier? Had this always been there, hidden beneath good intentions and careful language? That night, the parent knocked on her door. They asked how she was feeling. She said she was excited for the wedding. She said everything was fine. Her voice was steady. Too steady. She did not mention the unanswered questions or the avoided looks. She did not complain. She had learned long ago that gratitude was expected, not vulnerability. After the door closed, the parent sat alone and stared at the invitation lying on the table. The same smooth card that had arrived weeks ago now felt heavier. It was still just paper, but it carried something unspoken. The uneasy calm in the house settled deeper, pressing quietly on everyone inside. As the days moved closer to the wedding, the adopted daughter stopped asking questions. Not because she had answers, but because she sensed the limit of what she was allowed to want. She focused on small routines instead. Schoolwork, chores, quiet moments alone. She practiced being easy to accommodate, hoping that being less would somehow earn her more. The parent noticed the change. Silence replaced curiosity. Acceptance replaced excitement. The house looked peaceful to anyone passing by, but inside, something fragile was beginning to crack. Not loudly. Not all at once. Just enough to be felt by someone paying attention. The wedding invitation remained pinned to the board in the kitchen. A reminder of a celebration approaching. A reminder of a question no one had answered yet. And beneath the calm surface of family life, the first truth waited quietly, ready to surface when the time came. The days after the invitation passed quickly, filled with planning and quiet movement through the house. Boxes arrived at the door. Fabric samples were spread across tables. Notes were taped to walls and then taken down again. From the outside, everything looked busy and joyful, the way weddings were supposed to be. Inside, the feeling was different. It was softer, harder to explain, like a draft moving through closed rooms. The adopted daughter noticed first that some conversations no longer included her. She would walk into the living room and hear voices mid-sentence. The moment she appeared, the voices would lower or stop completely. Someone would change the subject. Someone would suddenly remember something else they needed to do. No one said anything unkind. No one told her to leave. Still, the silence felt pointed. Seating plans became a common topic, but only when she was not around. Papers would be folded and slipped away when footsteps approached. Screens were turned off too quickly. Once, she caught a glimpse of a chart on the table before it disappeared. Rows of names. Lines drawn carefully. She searched for her own without meaning to. It was gone before she could see clearly. She did not ask. She told herself there was a reason. Maybe it was not finished yet. Maybe things were still changing. She reminded herself that weddings were complicated, that details shifted all the time. She chose patience, the same way she always had. The biological sister changed in small ways that were easy to miss. She was still polite, still calm, but something in her expression hardened. Eye contact became rare. Smiles felt shorter, practiced. When the adopted daughter spoke, the sister listened just long enough to respond, then turned away. There were no arguments, no sharp words, just distance growing where warmth used to be. The parent noticed this too. At first, it registered as discomfort rather than alarm. They saw the sisters' avoidance and felt a brief concern, but they did not confront it. They hoped it was stress. Planning a wedding could make anyone withdraw. It was easier to believe that than to question something deeper. One afternoon, the adopted daughter offered to help organize place cards. She said it casually, standing near the doorway, hands folded. The response came quickly from across the room. It was already handled. No help was needed. The tone was polite but final. She nodded and stepped back, as if she had crossed an invisible line. Later, the parent found her sitting quietly, folding laundry that did not need folding yet. They watched her hands move carefully, almost slowly, as if giving herself time to think. The parent considered asking what was wrong, but the moment passed. They told themselves again that pushing might make things worse. That patience was safer. As the week went on, the pattern repeated. Plans were discussed in hushed tones. Decisions were made without her knowledge. When she entered a room, the energy shifted. Not sharply, but enough to be felt. She began to pause outside doorways, listening, deciding whether it was safe to step inside. Inside her, questions formed but stayed unspoken. She wondered if she had done something wrong. If she had misunderstood her place. If excitement had made her forget her boundaries. She reminded herself to be grateful. She reminded herself not to make things difficult. Silence became her protection. The parent sensed the change in the house more clearly now. The calm felt strained, like something held together by effort alone. They noticed how the adopted daughter no longer asked questions. How she no longer lingered near planning conversations. How she made herself smaller without being told. Once, the parent overheard a conversation between relatives. It stopped abruptly when they entered the room. Apologies followed. Nervous smiles. Nothing explained. The parent stood there longer than necessary, feeling something settle heavily in their chest. This was no longer simple oversight. That evening, the biological sister passed the adopted daughter in the hallway without speaking. Their shoulders brushed lightly. The adopted daughter stopped, turned as if to say something, then thought better of it. She continued on, her steps quiet against the floor. The parent watched from a distance, unsure where to intervene. They feared confrontation might confirm something they were not ready to face. They hoped that time would soften whatever was happening. That once the wedding arrived, everything would fall back into place. But time did the opposite. It sharpened the silence. Each day closer to the wedding made the exclusion clearer, even without words. The adopted daughter felt it in the way plans unfolded without her. The parent felt it in the way their home no longer felt fully open. By the end of the week, nothing had been said aloud. Yet everything important had been communicated. Through pauses. Through avoidance. Through careful politeness that kept truth at a distance. The house remained calm, but beneath that calm, a quiet separation was forming, one that would not stay hidden much longer. The days just before the wedding felt slower, as if time itself had decided to move carefully. The house was still busy, but the energy had shifted. There was less excitement now and more tension, thin and stretched, ready to snap if pulled too hard. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something, though no one said what it was. The moment arrived on an ordinary afternoon. No raised voices. No argument. Just a conversation that began calmly, the way difficult truths often do when they are meant to sound reasonable. The bride stood near the kitchen table, holding her phone. Her posture was relaxed, her voice steady. She did not look angry. She did not look unsure. She spoke as if explaining a decision that had already been settled. She said the wedding would be a family-only event. At first, the words sounded harmless. Family-only was something people said often. It could mean many things. The parent waited, expecting more explanation, a clarification that would include everyone under the same roof. Instead, the bride continued. She said some relatives felt uncomfortable. She said it would be simpler this way. She said it was nothing personal. The adopted daughter stood a few steps away, close enough to hear every word. She had not meant to listen. She had just been passing through, slowing when she recognized the tone of the conversation. Her feet stopped without her realizing it. Her hands rested at her sides, still. The parent asked quietly what she meant. The bride did not raise her voice. She did not sigh or roll her eyes. She answered calmly, carefully choosing words that sounded polite enough to avoid blame. She said this was about real family. The phrase landed softly, but its weight was heavy. It was said without anger, without cruelty in the voice. That made it harder to argue with, harder to interrupt. It sounded like a fact instead of a choice. She explained that some people did not see the adopted daughter the same way. She said it would make things awkward. She said it was better not to complicate the day. The room went quiet. No one spoke right away. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. The parent felt the words settle in their chest, sharp and cold. They turned slowly, already knowing what they would see. The adopted daughter had not moved. Her face was calm, almost blank, as if her mind had stepped back to protect her from what she was hearing. Her eyes stayed on the floor. She did not cry. She did not speak. She simply stood there, absorbing every word. The parent took a step forward, ready to say something, but the bride continued, filling the space before anyone else could. She said she hoped everyone could understand. She said she did not want drama. She said the decision was final. The adopted daughter finally lifted her head. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet and steady. She asked if she should leave the room. The question was not angry. It was practical, learned from years of knowing when she was no longer welcome. The bride hesitated for the first time. Just a second. Then she nodded. That nod drew the line clearly. The adopted daughter walked away without rushing. Each step was measured. She did not slam doors. She did not make noise. The hallway swallowed her quietly, the sound of her footsteps fading. The parents stood frozen, their heart racing now. The calm explanation had done more damage than shouting ever could. There was nothing to argue against without exposing something ugly that had already been said out loud. They wanted to follow her, to undo what had been spoken, but the words could not be taken back. Not real family echoed louder in the silence than it ever had in speech. The bride looked relieved, as if a difficult task had been completed. She gathered her things and left the room, already moving on to the next detail on her list. The house felt different after that. Smaller. Colder. The quiet was no longer uneasy. It was heavy with meaning. Everyone now knew where the line had been drawn. In her room, the adopted daughter sat on the edge of her bed. She stared at nothing in particular. Her chest felt tight, but she breathed slowly, the way she had learned to do when emotions were not allowed space. She replayed the words again and again. Family only. Uncomfortable. Not real family. She had always known she was adopted. She had never hidden from that truth. What hurt was learning that it still defined her place, even after all the years, even after all the effort to belong. Down the hall, the parent finally moved. They knocked on her door, softly. No answer came. They stood there longer than necessary, feeling the weight of their own silence. The wedding was only days away now. The truth was no longer hidden behind hesitation or politeness. It had been spoken clearly, calmly, and without apology. And nothing in the house would ever feel the same again. After the words were spoken, nothing else needed to be said. The house settled into a silence that felt heavier than any argument. People moved through rooms carefully, as if sound itself might cause more damage. The adopted daughter did not cry. Not then. Not where anyone could see. She went to her room and closed the door softly behind her. No lock. No rush. Just a quiet withdrawal, the kind learned over time. Inside, the room looked the same as it always had. Books on the desk. Clothes folded neatly. Small signs of a life built carefully, always trying not to take up too much space. She sat on the bed and reached into her closet. The dress was there, still inside its cover. She had chosen it weeks ago, after long consideration. Not too bright. Not too bold. Something that would blend in without disappearing. She slipped it out slowly and laid it across her lap. Her fingers traced the fabric without thought. She remembered the moment she bought it. The quiet excitement. The way she imagined sitting among family, smiling politely, being present without drawing attention. That image faded now, leaving the room feeling smaller than before. Time passed without her noticing. The house sounds drifted faintly through the walls. Doors opening. Footsteps. Low voices. No one came to check on her right away, and she did not expect them to. She had learned how long it usually took. When the parent finally knocked, it was gentle. There was hesitation in the sound, as if they were unsure they had the right to enter. After a moment, they stepped inside. The adopted daughter looked up. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. She was still holding the dress, folded carefully in her hands. They sat beside her on the bed. Neither spoke at first. Words felt clumsy now, too large for the quiet that filled the room. She broke the silence. She asked one question. Did I do something wrong? Her voice did not shake. There was no anger in it. Just confusion, spoken plainly. The kind of question asked by someone who had spent years measuring themselves against invisible rules. The parent felt something break inside them. Not loudly. Not all at once. It was a deep fracture, spreading slowly through everything they thought they understood. They saw in that moment that the damage was not about the wedding. It was about belonging. About safety. About trust that had been built carefully and now cracked without warning. They wanted to answer quickly, to deny the question entirely. But the weight of it stopped them. This was not a question that could be brushed aside with comfort alone. It carried years behind it. They told her no. They told her she had done nothing wrong. They told her she mattered. She listened politely. She nodded. She said she understood. But something in her expression stayed guarded, as if the words were passing over a place that had already closed. She folded the dress more tightly and placed it beside her. The gesture was small, but it felt final. The parent realized then that trust does not shatter with noise. It weakens quietly, through moments like this. Through calm voices that say things they should never say. Through silence that arrives too late. They sat together longer, but the distance between them felt wider than the space on the bed. The adopted daughter leaned slightly away without meaning to. Not in rejection, but in protection. That night, the house slept uneasily. The wedding was still coming. Plans would continue. Smiles would be practiced. But something essential had shifted. In her room, the adopted daughter placed the dress back in the closet. She closed the door carefully, as if afraid of making noise. She lay down and stared at the ceiling, breathing slowly, teaching herself again how to stay quiet when something inside hurt too much. Down the hall, the parent sat alone, understanding for the first time that the deepest wounds leave no visible marks. They form silently, in moments that seem calm on the surface, and change everything beneath. The breakdown had already happened. It just did not look the way people expected. The days after that passed with a strange sense of pause, as if the house itself was waiting to see what the parent would do. No one asked directly at first. Life continued in careful motions. Meals were cooked. Messages were answered. Wedding plans moved forward as if nothing had changed. But beneath all of it, the question sat quietly, refusing to leave. The parent felt it from the moment they woke each morning. It followed them through the day, into small tasks and long silences. There were only two options, and both carried weight. Attend the wedding alone, or stand beside the child they had chosen years ago. Relatives began to call. Their voices were gentle, measured, meant to sound reasonable. No one raised their voice. No one demanded anything. They spoke as if offering help, not pressure. They said it was just one day. They said weddings were stressful and emotions ran high. They said the adopted daughter would understand. They said family harmony mattered more than hurt feelings. Each sentence was wrapped in calm logic, but the message beneath it was clear. Show up. Smile. Let it pass. The parent listened without interrupting. They thanked people for their concern. They said they would think about it. After the calls ended, the house felt quieter than before. At night, the parents sat alone and thought about the years behind them. The moment they chose to bring that child into their life. The early days filled with uncertainty and learning. The promises made quietly, without witnesses. The decision to be present, to protect, to stand firm even when it was difficult. They remembered scraped knees, late nights, school meetings, small victories no one else noticed. They remembered teaching her how to trust again. How to believe she had a place that could not be taken away. What did family mean if it could be set aside for convenience? What did love mean if it asked for silence in the face of harm? The parent thought of the dress still hanging untouched in the closet down the hall. Of the question asked on the bed. Did I do something wrong? They understood then that this was not about choosing sides. It was about choosing values. About deciding whether belonging was conditional or absolute. More messages arrived. Some kind. Some impatient. Some carefully neutral. A few suggested compromise. Attend the ceremony but skip the reception. Come for a short time. Keep the peace. The parent did not argue. They did not explain. The decision was forming quietly, the way important ones often do. On the morning they were expected to confirm their attendance, the parent stood in the kitchen and looked at the invitation one last time. The paper was still smooth. The words unchanged. But its meaning had shifted completely. They picked up the phone and declined. No long explanation. No accusations. Just a simple refusal. Silence became the answer. When they told the adopted daughter, they did not frame it as a sacrifice. They did not say they were choosing her over anyone else. They simply said they would not go. She looked surprised. Then uncertain. She asked if they were sure. She said she did not want to cause problems. Old habits surfaced easily. The parent told her gently that this was not her burden to carry. That evening, the house felt different. Still quiet, but steadier. The parent knew there would be consequences. Hurt feelings. Anger. Distance. But they also knew that some lines, once drawn, could not be crossed without losing something essential. They sat together without talking much. No grand moment. No speech. Just shared space. The wedding would happen without them. And for the first time since the invitation arrived, the parent felt certain they had chosen correctly. The wedding day arrived quietly for them. There were no alarms set early, no rush to get dressed, no cars waiting outside. Morning light filled the house the same way it always did, steady and ordinary. For everyone else, it was a day marked by schedules and excitement. Inside the house, it was marked by absence. The adopted daughter woke later than usual. She stayed in her room longer, scrolling on her phone without really seeing anything. She told herself it was just another day. She moved slowly, carefully, as if speed might make the truth harder to avoid.